And in tonight's deep dive, we're focusing on the nationwide protests in Iran and the widespread internet blackout limiting information to Iranians and what they're able to share with the world. A human rights organization now says more than 3,900 people have been killed and more than 24,000 others have been arrested in the protests. Iran's government has not confirmed exact figures of deaths and arrests. With the internet blackout now in its 12th day, a global internet monitoring company, NetBlock, says national connectivity in Iran remains extremely minimal. Joining me now is Mahsa Alimardani. She's the Associate Director of Technology Threats and Opportunities at the human rights organization Witness. So Mahsa, thank you for joining us. You have family and relatives living in Tehran. How are they doing, and are you able to communicate with them to hear about what they're going through right now?
Thanks for having me on. So as of last Tuesday, the Iranian authorities turned on outgoing landline telephone calls. So I think something many people don't know is that when the internet shutdown happened on the evening of January 18th, there was also a communication blackout that occurred. But as of last Tuesday, outgoing calls were enabled. But of course, as we know, outgoing calls are monitored by the authorities in Iran. So of course, it's very hard to communicate. But what we have been seeing is there is a certain amount of Starlink satellite internet terminals available inside of Iran. And much of the documentation efforts that we've been seeing, many of the human rights organizations that are trying to verify very meticulously and methodologically the death count. And as you said, you had a recent figure by one of the organizations around 3,900. Of course, each of these organizations that come out with these figures say that they are in fact much higher because their access to information is systematically denied as, a part of what's going on. The Iranian authorities have turned off the internet to enable what is one of the possibly most historic large-scale massacres of protesters. I don't think since Tiananmen Square we have seen these numbers, and from all intents and purposes, these numbers have exceeded the deaths of those protesters back in the 80s in China. So the internet shutdown is very much the tool with which they use to enable these crimes to occur in the dark. Of course, there's threats on families of victims not to report these officially. The information fog is very much a part of what they are doing in terms of the repression and violence against the protesters.
Given the information fog you were just talking about and the extreme communication challenges, how are protesters able to organize and get their videos and stories out to the world, including some of the videos that we've been playing on our airwaves?
Like I said, there is a small window into Iran right now, and that has been enabled by satellite internet. And it's through Starlink terminals that have been smuggled into the country. There was a 12-day war between Iran and Israel last June. Starlink became popular, and they, started off selling at $300 a dish, but they're now upwards of $1,000 to $2,000 US being sold. And so there's a very limited window. As a human rights organization at Witness, as someone who works on technology and human rights, we've been advocating for a way to scale satellite internet access to the Iranian people. Of course, normal internet access is encumbered by authorities and local infrastructure that they can control and shut off. So if there is a way, we've been calling on many different policymakers and governments to enable a more kind of scalable form of satellite internet, which is called direct-to-cell satellite internet, which is something that companies such as Starlink have already been developing. And so there must really be a way to take away this cudgel that the Iranian authorities use to enact such massacres, and that is by giving free access and providing free access to the internet in a way that we can witness and properly document these crimes, because they are ashamed of what they're doing and they are trying to hide it. And they have been putting forth a massive information operation as well as this type of censorship to ensure that the truth about the scale, which from all anecdotal reports professionally and personally as a Iranian, the scale is really unprecedented. I mean, if you speak to any Iranian that has any connection inside of Iran, they know at least one person that has died in these protests, if not handfuls of individuals, if not handfuls of individuals across every single neighborhood in Iran. It's very hard to describe the total scale of the deaths, and the information fog that is being enabled is really making it hard. I mean, here on ABC News, of course, you have to point to a verified number, which is 3,900. But of course, because of the information environment, we don't know the full scale. And a recent report, for example, from medical workers says that it's above 16,000 protesters that have been killed by authorities.
Wow, that is incredibly important context, especially bringing all that context around the numbers that we are able to report. Mahsa Alimardani, thank you so much.